Hi, this is Don Debelak. You've reached the fourth video in our video series on creating an introduction plan. What we're really talking about in these first few videos is different paths to market, different paths that you can follow. One of the other paths that we're going to talk about in this video is joint ventures, another way to increase sales and cut your risk. Now, joint ventures really aren't that great a deal for inventors, and they're very complex and they have a lot of issues, but they play a role and really they can often result in a final licensing deal. Basically, what's happening is that you're gone to a manufacturer or distribution partner. They like your product, they want to put up some money, they want to see it go forward, but they're not quite ready to do um, a license. They're not quite ready to feel confident that the market will succeed, so they might want to do a joint venture instead. Don't Even though the joint venture doesn't might not look good to you originally, keep working on the joint venture. Sometimes they work out, and often it results in, once the manufacturer gets deeper and deeper into your product, sees what it can really do, then the licensor all of a sudden will turn around and be willing, or the potential joint venture partner will turn around and be willing to actually do a license deal. Again, take a look at the search function on the first page of One Stop Invention Shop. If you put in joint ventures, what you'll happen is you'll start to see some magazine articles that I wrote for Entrepreneur back in the early 2000s, and they will give you a flavor what people who pursued the joint option, how their deals were structured and how they worked out. What is a joint venture? Well, basically, a joint venture is that both parties invest. Now, your investment might be your patent, it might be your product development, it might do the market research that you put in, and the other partner's investment usually is cash that's really needed to get the products going forward. The profits are split, not always 50-50, and there's always a little tug and pull here, where the manufacturer is going to think his money is more important and you're going to think your product is more important, but you usually can work out some type of a mutually acceptable agreement. Ownership of the product is also split. Decisions are mutual usually, or based upon ownership. If you are able to keep like 60% ownership, then you'll have 60% of the vote on the decisions going forward. It's tough to get more than 50-50 though, and often the manufacturer will go further. Again, I got to caution you not to get too excited about what the joint venture is and how it's proceeding and going along, because the manufacturer is going to be doing due diligence, and really when you start a joint venture talk, you're hoping that the manufacturer does more and more due diligence, sees the product has more and more potential, and is going to be eventually turning into a license and agreement. Typically in joint ventures, product derivations, new related products are typically all included, so the joint venture, you have more protection against the licensee trying to go out and actually taking your product. The main reason that you're looking at a joint venture is that the partner's got to invest money, and he doesn't really want to invest money without having some ownership in the product. There's sort of a joint venture is kind of a twist, and it has two competing versions. One is the manufacturer or the company who's your joint venture partner does not want to take all the risk. He wants to see the risk spread, and he wants to see you really vitally involved in the product and not sort of crapping out on him and not going forward. On the other hand, the joint venture partner wants to have some control, and he wants to have some ownership because of the money he invests. So at the beginning of a process, sort of the dance between the inventor and the potential partner, it's really a decision based upon not enough confidence in the product, not enough confidence in you, and wanting to share the risk. What are the advantages? Well, the partners that you're looking at, they want to start talking right away about a joint venture because they don't want to be cut out. So that's your first clue that there is a strong interest from them, and they don't want to just spend money or do things for you and all of a sudden be left out. all the parties want the project to succeed. Both you and the other partner want the product to succeed. You're both working together. It minimizes rash actions. Entrepreneurs sometimes go off and make decisions that aren't really carefully thought through. So when you have a joint venture partner, you have someone else who's got to bounce ideas. It minimizes rash actions. It also slows up the decision-making process, makes you a little more cautious, and helps you avoid mistakes. Of course, the joint venture makes a better front to customers. Basically, when you go out as an inventor, uh, your customers always are a little skeptical. Are you going to be able to deliver? Do you have the financing backup? How reliable are you going to be? But when you're with a joint venture partner, it presents a more stable vendor relationship with the customer, and they usually like that. Also, with a joint venture partnership, you're working with a bigger company, you have a better chance to secure bank financing. A lot of disadvantages for a joint venture, especially for an inventor's side. One is you don't have much control. Two, you can't really dump a partner. So in your licensing and private label, if a partner's not performing, usually you have outs in your contracts to get rid of them. It's not nearly as easy to get rid of a joint venture partner. So your partner, if they just run out of steam and decide don't want to go ahead, and not willing to invest any more money, you're kind of stuck, and it's hard to get out of. Now, there's going to be a lot more performance standards upon the inventor in a joint venture. The joint venture partner, just as you don't want him to stop working, that joint venture partner doesn't want you to stop working, and you're going to have certain criteria that you're going to have. Probably the biggest issue on joint ventures, and the reason you really want to start pushing towards a license agreement once you really get that a manufacturer or distribution partner who could be a licensor moving towards a license agreement, is future investments. So you start out with the product, you decide to put in the product, you decide to put in your expertise, and maybe you put in a small amount of money, and your partner puts in a large amount of money. Now we're going to march down the road 6 to 9 months. The product is starting to do well, and all of a sudden what you're looking at is you need to put more money. The joint venture needs more money. Well, if your partner puts up 50% of the money, he's going to expect you to put up 50%. Now, under financed inventors, they have a tough time doing that. So what happens then is the partner says, well, if you can't put up an investment, then I'm going to own more of the company and you're going to own less. And then that's really not a good deal for the inventor, because all of a sudden you've lost control of the invention. Now you're going to have to be very secretive in a joint venture at first, because the only thing that going to keep you as a partnership and keep that company wanting to get more and more control is that you have to keep your contacts, your market intelligence, the key things that can really bring value to the company, that you're bringing value to the company, secret, and that's not easy to do always. The joint venture partner is going to want to know who they are, and keeping them secret is hard to do while still maintaining a good relationship and avoiding the credibility. You've got to really worry about just being a middleman, and you have to be able to bring value to the joint venture relationship, or really the joint venture partner is going to want to screen you out. To some effect, this helps you in trying to get a license agreement, but if you're a joint venture partner and fully going forward, sometimes it's harder to get a good license arrangement. Steps to success. Again, this is just sort of our table of contents for the upcoming slides, what we're going to be talking about. You're going to start by deciding what partners you want. Is it going to be a manufacturer? It's going to be a marketer, or it's going to be both. Who are you going to really target to get to be a joint venture partner? Now, basically what's happening here is a joint venture partnership is usually something you're forced into. So we had talked a little bit earlier about, before you get started, looking at manufacturers, finding manufacturers, and we've also looked at finding manufacturers for private label or we've also talked about finding, partners as far as licensing. Well, what's happening is the investment comes in, and you're trying to pursue those avenues. Your partners are going to push back and want a joint venture to cut their risk and also to have a share of the company. So you've kind of working backwards in a joint venture where you're forced into it. So you've probably already worked with partners and found them in your other methods, and the companies have come back and pushed back on you to really want a joint venture. Once they have a joint venture, you really have to decide how you keep control, or at least some control, and don't end up being just on the sidelines. You have to have a firm criteria for your partners. Now, your criteria in a joint venture have to be much stricter than in a license or a private label, because all of a sudden, you have a lot more risk in a joint venture, and unless you can separate yourself, if the joint venture goes bankrupt or something, you're going to have certain risk involved. Once again, you've got to identify and prioritize your prospects, just like we did with private label and licensing. You've got to prepare a presentation. Now, with the joint venture, you're always kind of struggling to keep your share of the company at 50%, while the company's at 50% while they put up a lot more money. So you want to have a CapEx and OpEx, revenues, profits, 3-year financials, so you can show just how profitable your product is and how much it'll benefit the company. You've got to really be selling the real advantages of why that company should be investing so much money while you're investing a lot less. Again, you sign an MOU, and you're signing the MOU primarily because you'll be dealing with a lot of different people at a company, and you want to make sure that top management is committed to going forward, and this isn't really just a side project for some of your contacts. When you have an MOU signed, the top management is really given their blessing on the company. Anytime a company is not willing to sign an MOU, you have to be suspicious that top management's really not on board. And then you finalize an agreement and go forward in your joint venture. Why do a joint venture? Well, your potential partners want it to protect themselves before investing. They want to know that you just can't walk away from the deal. In the case of manufacturers, they worry about you switching to another manufacturer. In the case of distributors or marketers, they worry that you withdraw the product from them. If it's a joint venture, they don't have any of those worries. From your point of view, strong partners allow you to more easily raise funds and at better terms. So if you have a joint venture, one of the things you want to stress is that when the more money is necessary, that you're going to borrow money in, and you want to have it set up so that if the joint venture partner has to put in more money, it's a loan to the company that you're going to pay back. You've got to work to get your 50%, and usually you can get bank loans, and that really helps you protect your 50%. Usually, as I said, the partners you've looked at for private label or manufacturing on your own, or also licensing, all these partners sometimes will be pushing for a joint venture, and that's why you're really into the joint venture vote. It's not your optimal plan. Finally, your partners will often want the patent assigned to the joint venture. That's something you don't necessarily want to do unless the joint venture will give the patent back to you if it doesn't hit certain sales goals, or if the company decides not to pursue it. Don't sign a joint venture agreement that leaves you at risk of where the company decides, maybe this isn't the right thing to do, and the joint venture is languishing and you can't get the patent back to restart your product, taking another direction. Decide what partners you want. You have marketing partners, you have manufacturing partners, you have distribution partners. All of them, have different roles to play. You definitely want a manufacturer partner if your startup manufacturing expenses are high. You also want that manufacturer, if they have design help or can get certification. Sometimes you'll have a product with electrical characteristics, and you'll need UL certifications, or you're going to have a product that needs water treatment certifications, and there's quite a few other certifications in the market. If you need that, it's really helpful to have a manufacturer who knows how to negotiate those kind of agreements. You want a marketing partner where they have a very strong market presence and really can push your product out with a lot of force. It's difficult to control if you decide to take on two partners, manufacturing and distribution. Then you're just one third, and more or less you're going to be outvoted almost all the time, and you'll be pushed to the sidelines. So avoid that. Keep control by owning the patent or having special industry conditions or having a connection or a contract provision so that the patent comes back to you if the company or the joint venture doesn't live up to certain standards. Decide how you keep control. This is sort of a misnomer because it's awfully hard to keep control, and all you can really do is do the best you can to keep control. Try to keep owning the patent. Try to have value added that you're bringing with industry connections. Being a force on committees, being a force in the associations, having specialized production knowledge, knowing something about making the product that other people don't know. Another one is that you could be a major investor or bringing in a major investor to the joint venture. That will help you keep control. But if there's only one partner, keeping your relationships under the control with that partner, not giving up too much information to the partner, and always being looked as a valuable resource. That's very important. And you have one or more product in the pipeline. So if you have a product and it's come out and they look like successful, if you can say, well, I really know this industry, I've got 4 or 5 other products coming, and they're going to come out and they're going to help the joint venture proceed, that also helps you keep control. But again, as I say, when you're in the joint venture, as you're going more and more in towards the negotiation of a final agreement, don't be afraid to suggest maybe they'd be better off licensing. The company's always going to be concerned that they're going to get the best deal and that you're getting too good of a deal. And in all honesty, the inventors aren't the greatest negotiators, and they don't always understand how to negotiate. So try to push things towards a licensing agreement. You're much better off. As I said earlier, you want a criteria for your partners. So for manufacturers, this could include design, manufacture equipment, that they have excess production capacity and can easily absorb your product. They have access to cash, and that they have profitability on the rest of their line. In other words, you don't want the joint venture supporting that company. Then they don't have enough cash to support it. You want their whole line to be profitable. Now, once again, we get back to the presentation. Now, this presentation is not all that much different than you would do for private label or for licensing. The one big difference that you're going to have is your manufacturing cost estimates and margin analysis. You've got to, and also your other partners, you're trying to sell yourself that you are going to be a joint venture partner while putting up a substantial amount less money than the joint venture partner. So you really want a strong cost estimate margin analysis that shows that, hey, over the next 2 or 3 years, your product is really going to produce a lot of money for the joint venture. That's your value added, not the cash you can invest. But do go into what you have invested, and if you have partners or something that you have investors and they're going to have a share of your part of the joint venture, that'll be okay. One of the things you have to talk about if you do have investors is just what they own. So you have company A, and company A has investors, and now company A is a joint partner in the joint venture. That doesn't mean your investors own part of the joint venture, but they own part of company A who owns part of the joint venture. Be sure to make it clear in your presentation any kind of entanglements you have with investors, and that you've made it clear to them that they're really involved with company A and not the joint venture. And then you can talk about the basics of the joint venture agreement that you're looking for. Now use your SCORE people, use your small business development people, or use a lawyer that you might know to list this. you want to have a chance to put forth what you want in the agreement first, and not just accept what the company gives you for the joint venture agreement, because it's going to be very favorable to them. Get your proposal out first, and you'll have a better chance of getting your terms into the final agreement. Again, this goes into the 3-year financials that I was just talking about. You've got to protect your position. You've got to make a strong case that you're worthy of 50% without putting up that much money. So you want to be able to show a strong return with high margins. Signing an MOU, as I mentioned earlier, an MOU is important in that it shows that the entire company is on board supporting moving ahead with a joint venture. I mean, you sign an MOU before you're ready for a final agreement. There's a due diligence. You're working out whether or not the manufacturing costs and CapEx costs, which is the capital equipment cost, and your operating costs are as you say. And they're also going to want to do due diligence about the market and things like that. So during this phase, which can take somewhere between 2 and 6 months, you want the understanding the company's committed. They're going to go ahead. They're not just going to fall off the table. And that an MOU really helps you keep this thing moving. And it tells you no questions asked. There's no questions asked that the top management is supporting the agreement. And then, of course, you're finalizing agreement. Again, the internet is full of joint venture agreements to look at and to kind of get an idea of what's looking out. Again, take a look at the inventor stories about inventors who've actually done joint ventures and some of the things that they've gone through with. But you want to deal with the lack of performance by a partner. If they have a lack of performance, you want to take your product back and the patent reverts to you. You want to talk about what happens with product derivations, that all those product derivations stick with the joint venture. You want to define partner share and future investments. Your number one option is a loan, and there's number two option is that the joint venture partner loans the joint venture money, because then you can keep your 50%. Your worst option is that if they put up an investment, you have to match it in order to keep your share. For exit strategies, which is typically one partner buying out the other partner, or it might be one partner working on a license agreement with the other partner, which is really what you'd like to do before the final joint venture is done. Don't be afraid. Go to get free advice from SCORE, your local small business development center, and you want to find a helpful business lawyer. Now, again, some inventors want to go and they want to say to themselves, oh, gee, this joint venture, it's just not something worth pursuing. It's too complicated. But don't take that tact, because often you'll be able to swing away from a joint venture into a license agreement as the company does due diligence and sees what the real true market potential of your product is.